Here's the truth. I don't like my face. I know. Out of all of the problems facing our world today, the way my face looks ranks pretty low on that totem pole. But I have a terrible tendency to absolutely pick myself apart over the way my chin tilts to the side, or how one eye is more hooded than the other, or how one side of my smile curves downward. So as you may know, I've been making my way through the 100 Heads challenge over the past few months and choosing a lot of wildly, wonderfully different reference photos. Young people, old people, freckles, vitiligo, acne, crow's feet, asymmetries, and so much more. So many unique people with unique features, and every single one of them I find absolutely beautiful. And with every new portrait I painted, this question started to grow in my mind. If I can see all of these asymmetries and lines and quirks in other people and see the beauty in them, why can't I do the same for myself? So I decided to embark on what might just be the hardest portrait of the 100 Heads challenge, my self-portrait. The hope being that I can learn or choose to see myself the way I see other people. This may all sound very egotistical or, selfish, but it's not easy to see yourself every day and not like what you see. So with this portrait, I want to change the narrative. Even if I don't come out of this feeling like,
wow, what a bombshell!
I at least want to be more neutral about my face. Anywho, y'all have been asking some really great questions lately, so while we paint, let's have a cozy little Q&A session. I've arranged these questions by category: art and creativity, business, and personal. So let's start with the artsy questions. Are dip pens worth it, and do you have any other favorite pens for drawing with? 10,000% yes. I got my dip pen for Christmas, I think 3 years ago, maybe 4, and honestly, it is one of the best gifts I've ever gotten. I have the Deleter dip pen, which came with 3 different nibs. It's super affordable, the nib range is super versatile. Honestly, you could easily get away with just the Nico nib. It has a really great range of line weights. But overall, if pen drawings are your thing, you need a dip pen in your arsenal. The most expensive part is the ink, because that's the part you have to replace most often. Although you do also want to work with a good paper, because not every paper is suitable for ink drawings. If you want me to dive deeper into dip pens, types of inks, and types of paper, let me know down in the comments, because I would be more than happy to make a dedicated video on it. As far as other pens I like to use for drawing, honestly, just a regular ballpoint pen. What do you think is the best way to get meaningful feedback on your illustration work? So my number one tip for this is to have a solid community of artists that you trust. You could throw your work up on Instagram for critique and you may get a lot of responses, but those responses are going to vary wildly in terms of both hatefulness and helpfulness. Helpful advice given hatefully is not going to be received, but kind words can also be very empty words when they don't really help you grow as an artist. So over the last year and a half, I've been building a Discord group for the Curious Creatives tier on my Patreon. We have a very diverse range of artists, from digital artists to oil painters to professionals to beginners. We're always putting up our work in there and asking for advice on everything from anatomy proportions to color harmony. But the most important part of the community is the heart that everybody brings to it. The critique there is always given from a place of encouragement, and each of us has the desire to not only grow our own skills, but to truly help each other grow too. So number one tip, seek advice from artists that you trust who truly have your best interest at heart. My second tip would be to ask for specific critique. Don't just say,
hey, what do you think of this piece?
Ask something like, do you have any advice on how to fix the perspective? Or do these colors fit well together? Or does the pose of this character convey the right emotion? And my third piece of advice is on how you receive the critique. Art is so deeply personal, and sometimes we can get a little bit bristly about truly receiving feedback on it. I am absolutely guilty of this. But to grow as artists, we have to remember that we can always be improving. To improve, we need to be willing to receive critique from artists who are further along in a skill than we are. But we also need to remember that we do not have to implement every piece of feedback. Maybe someone doesn't really like the color choices you made, but that's the palette that resonates the most with you. You don't have to change it if those are the colors that you enjoy using. You can pick and choose what critiques you implement into your artwork. What is some obscure art advice you have? I would say if you're feeling at all stuck in your creative practice, like maybe you're just not feeling your style anymore, or maybe you've hit a plateau with your skills, or maybe you just kind of feel like you're making the same thing over and over again. So if you're feeling stuck, try a medium that has absolutely nothing to do with what you typically do. One of the really beautiful things about creativity is that every single form of creativity we practice has an impact on the others, even the ones that sound like there is no crossover. So for example, I really love illustration, specifically painting gouache illustrations. But one of the most beneficial things I've done is explore 3D mediums, learning how to sculpt or building miniature kits. Working with 3D forms helps me better understand form in a 2D space, like how you can twist and turn different objects. And building mini kits helps me with composition because I'm trying to arrange each of the props in a way that makes sense for the space, but still puts a focus on the elements that are the most exciting to me. Mediums that are not your typical go-to can make a really big impact on your creative practice by giving you a different context for the fundamentals or different ideas for new artwork. Maybe you pick up crochet or needle felting, maybe you try welding, I don't know. But if you're feeling stuck, try something totally different and see how it evolves your creative practice in ways that you never thought were possible. Any tips on pushing past sketching when trying to create full illustration concepts or compositions? I find that I'll sketch and doodle, but nothing is really piquing my interest enough, so I'm stuck in the sketching phase. I am right there with you. It can be crazy hard moving from the sketching phase to the finalizing phase. Sometimes it's fear holding us back, sometimes it's a lackluster idea, sometimes it's a lack of skill for actually bringing the idea to life. I would really dive deep into your own headspace on this and do some searching to find out why the things you're sketching aren't piquing your interest. What isn't hitting with the idea? Is it the theme? Is it the characters? Is it the environment? Are you sketching in a realistic style when you really love exaggerated shapes? When it comes to a lack of direction with our illustrations, I really believe the biggest culprit is inspiration or input overload. We're too bombarded with everyone else's ideas that we don't really know what we want to create. So for example, I really love Annie Stegg's art. She creates these incredible ethereal oil paintings, and I have several of her prints around my room. Now, it could be very easy for me to look at her work and, because I like it, try to make paintings that look like hers. But that's not the kind of art that I want to make. It's not the style I enjoy, the medium I enjoy, even the types of characters I enjoy illustrating. Sometimes the things we like looking at are not the things we like implementing into our own artwork. So it might be beneficial for you to take a step back from input, take a step back from social media, maybe even stop looking at art books for a little bit and just start tuning into your own ideas. Ask yourself what you really enjoy making and make that thing. What was the original inspiration for Bits and Bobbles, and who did you create first? Bits and Bobbles were a duo from the start. One does not exist without the other. So the original inspiration was their names. I randomly had the thought of Bits and Bobbles and thought,
Those would be cute character names.
But it was probably several weeks before I figured out who they actually were. And honestly, I think part of the inspiration behind Bits and Bobbles might just be my love for stuffed animals. I was a stuffed animal kid. I had a whole net of these things above my bed. Spring cleaning was the worst part of my year.
Because my parents would always make me pare down my collection, which was devastating because I didn't want to hurt any of their feelings.
Needless to say, much crying ensued. Anywho, I loved squishy little stuffed animals, and I kind of think that contributed to Bits and Bobbles' squishy kind of quality. What's the most funny or ridiculous thing you've drawn, and was it on purpose or by accident? It's gotta be this one. I made this little piece for a trading card group I was in a few years back, and honestly, I don't even remember what the theme was, but for some reason, I had the idea to illustrate a little scientist whose project has spilled on her lunch and created a sentient bagel. I thought it was hilarious. And honestly, I'm still pretty proud of this one. What made you choose gouache way back when you did the 100 Scene Studies challenge? At first when I read this, I was like,
Way back? That was like last year.
but that was, in fact, 3 years ago, so. Anywho, so at this point, I was still fairly new to gouache. I had done a few pieces, but not very many. This felt like a great opportunity to really dedicate time and energy to learning the medium. The truth is, when you're learning literally anything, mileage matters. To truly understand a medium and grow in your skills, you have to spend a lot of time with it and be willing to make some pretty mediocre stuff. But I made 100 paintings over the course of that challenge, and each one of them helped me understand gouache a little bit better. I don't think I'd be anywhere close to where I am today in my gouache journey if I hadn't stuck with gouache for the whole challenge. So let's move on to business questions. Do you have any plans or dreams for a second art book? And if so, is it going to be in the same style, or would you approach this second one differently? So I have absolutely loved making books this year. I loved making the Bits and Baubles book. I'm so excited for my storybook coming out in October, and I definitely plan on continuing to turn my Merricky Monday sketches into art books for the foreseeable future. Those are definitely going to be in the same format, the sketches, the poems, the thought prompts, and such. But I'd also really love to make an Art of the Merricky Meadow book at some point. We're talking full color, hardcover, all out art book. I want to include the whole journey of making these illustrations, from the color comps, the ideation, the wins, the struggles, the frustrations, and inspirations, really just to share how each piece helps to build up the lore of the Merricky Meadow. I definitely want to make this happen at some point, but the logistics of actually doing that are more than I can handle at the moment. How do you publish an art book? Gotta spend money to make money, but what do you do when you have none to spare?
In terms of money, we have no money.
In this case, I think you have 3 options. Number 1 would be to get in with an art book publisher. Think like 3D Total. They work with artists to create art books. Sometimes these are a book on a specific artist like Jamila Knopf or Devin L. Kurtz. Other times it's a book on a topic like composition, where they've gathered together several different artists to share their perspectives on that topic. Option number 2, raising funds. Take on some commissions, sell some originals, maybe look into a part-time job. It's not just the cost of the book, it's also the cost of shipping materials too. Research how much it's going to cost to get the book printed and buy the necessary materials, and start building your piggy bank with that goal in mind. You mentioned that you have to spend money to make money, which is somewhat true, but not so much for option 3. In this case, you could do something like a Kickstarter or a pre-sale if you have your own online shop. By doing a pre-sale, you're getting the funding up front before actually printing the book. To do this, you do need a solid fan base who are truly interested in getting an art book from you. It takes a lot of time to write the copy for a book and to scan everything if you're a traditional artist, to format the pages. You want to make sure that all of this work is worth it. So I've used OnPress for self-publishing my books, and genuinely, they are the best. This is not sponsored, I'm just a very big fan. They're the most affordable that I've found, and their customer service is top tier. They caught all of the little mistakes with my first book and helped me fix them. They're super quick in answering questions, which is great because I have a lot of them. How do you decide what to focus on in YouTube videos? So I'm guessing you mean like the voiceover topical aspect of my videos. Sometimes it just depends on the video. If I'm doing like a cozy little art vlog where we're just catching up and chatting about life, then I will talk about whatever comes to mind. But for my more thought piece kind of videos like the Habit versus Hustle video or my Lost Possibilities video, these are actually born out of my email newsletter. Which, if you enjoy chatting with me and getting some happy mail, you should definitely sign up for my newsletter via the link in the description. So this method was actually something I learned from Kelsey Rodriguez's Creative Entrepreneurs Workbook. Instead of just opening up a blank Word document and saying,
Okay, let's write a video.
I can use the things I'm already talking about in my newsletter and build on those instead of having to start from ground zero. this is especially helpful for me dealing with chronic illness. My spoons are fairly limited. So to be able to pull out a topic from my newsletter and go,
Okay, how can I dive deeper into this?
that is a really great way for me to conserve my energy. All right, time for some personal questions. What are pieces of media you're interested in but haven't gotten around to yet? I'm a little confused on this question. Do you mean pieces of media like books or shows and such? I think that's what this question is. So I don't know, let's just roll with that. To be fully honest, a lot of the media getting made today is just not good. I'm not even talking about like inappropriate or too violent or anything like that. I mean that the stories being told in books and movies and music, they're half-tushed. They're mediocre at best. Finding those hidden gems that really fill your cup is getting more and more difficult. That said, I would really love to watch Over the Garden Wall. I saw an episode or two a few years ago and thought it was really interesting, but I didn't get a chance to finish it. So one of the things I've gotten into a little bit more this year is magazines. I'm currently reading through a copy of In Her Studio, which is a really cool magazine dedicated to showcasing creative women and the work they're making and the spaces they're doing it in. I love magazines because in and of themselves, they're a slower paced source of input. It's not like opening up Instagram and having the world at your fingertips. A magazine has been so carefully crafted and curated to share stories and show you beautiful things without overwhelming you. And this magazine in particular just has a soft, cozy quality to it that I really enjoy.
Shocking, I know.
Do you have any fun, interesting, or insightful things that happened at your summer camp this year? Okay, so for context, I volunteer at a children's camp every summer for kids with incarcerated parents. It's an incredible ministry, and it's really such a joy and a blessing to get to serve there. So at this camp, you get paired with a kid or two, and you're their big buddy for the week. You go fishing with them, you do crafts with them, you laugh and you cry with them, and it's awesome. So one of the girls I had for my first 2 years aged out this year. This was her last summer with us. Now, I haven't been her big buddy for several years now, but we've still been super close ever since then. So during the last evening of camp this year, she reminded me of something that I had completely forgotten. She told me that the first year I brought her a stuffed animal because I didn't know if she was going to bring one, and I told her that no one should ever have to be away from home without a stuffed animal. She told me that she wanted to get me one as a little parting gift and that she'd brought one every year since because of that. That little moment was so precious to me because it reminded me of what a big impact very small things can have. Small words and small actions can grow into really big, beautiful things. Do you enjoy camping? That's a great question. I don't know. My only experience with camping was one time when I was like 3 and my family decided to set up a tent in the backyard. At about 11 o'clock, my mom and I were like,
No, peace out, homies.
and we went inside and got a good night's sleep. I like the idea of camping, but I struggle to sleep anyways, and I imagine I would probably not have a good time. What was your favorite grade in school? So I had the chillest senior year. I had like 3 or 4 classes, and all of them are ones that were actually useful in being a person. I took things like personal finance and business math. Not only were they interesting, but they're also very applicable to being an adult and running a small business. So I actually ended up finishing my senior year in like February because I wanted to be able to devote my time to practicing for my ACT test. Which was great because like 3 weeks after I finished school, the world shut down with disease. So good timing. What is your comfort snack? So this isn't really a snack per se, but pancakes. Pancakes for me are the epitome of cozy eats. What was your favorite show growing up that you would constantly rewatch? Mine was My Little Pony. That was mine too. I watched that show through countless times. It's been a hot second since I've seen it, but I should add that to my watch list again. Do you have any hobbies other than painting, playing video games, watching TV, etc.? I do enjoy video games, but I rarely play them. They take a fair amount of time to play through, and it's time that I'm spending by myself. I'm a fairly extroverted person, and at the end of a day of working by myself, I'm kind of done with that. I also really love playing board games. Catan is a staple in our house. Oh, and jigsaw puzzles. Oh, I love jigsaw puzzles. What is the ultimate goal for the Meriki Meadow? Continue it as a series of artworks, eventually use the artworks to make a coffee table art book, make it into a storybook, etc. That's a really good question, and honestly, I don't really know. Like I said earlier, I would definitely love to have an art book of some of the Meriki Meadow illustrations, but that's not really the be-all end-all goal. Over the last few years, the Meriki Meadow has grown into something much bigger than I thought it'd be, and honestly, I'm just kind of going wherever it leads. So y'all asked a lot of really great questions, and I couldn't get to all of them this time around. My voice is absolutely dying, so let's start to wrap this up. So going back to the portrait, was I successful in my effort to see myself a little differently? I would say yes. You might have noticed I had big issues with the eyes and had to completely repaint one of them. That part of the process was quite frustrating. But in terms of actually having to look at myself for a few hours and just paint what I saw, I think that was pretty good for me. It forced me to notice everything and get acquainted with every little asymmetry or line or what have you. One thing I hadn't noticed before this piece was that I have a lot of lines around my eyes from a lifetime of smiling, and I think that's really cool. It's evidence of big joy in my life. I do think my favorite part of the portrait was the hair. This is the first time I feel like I've been able to paint curls well, and I really took my time on it. Curls are hard because there are a lot of different curl patterns out there, and each one creates wildly different values within the hair itself. So taking my time on this portrait really helped me better understand them. Overall, I'm really glad that I did this self-portrait. I'd be lying if I said I'm now like 100% comfortable with how I look, but I do believe I'm more neutral about it and have even learned to see a little bit of beauty in some of my features. But I think more importantly, I'm learning that it's not that deep. Beauty is a wonderful thing, but it isn't the be-all end-all. Not once has anyone ever told me,
You know, Allie, you'd be a much better friend if you were prettier.
I read this quote recently that said, there is so much more to life when we lay down the idol of our appearance. I've let self-consciousness steal a lot of joy and cause me to not be present and in the moment. And you know what? I don't want to do that anymore. Yes, I do want to see myself the way I see other people, but I don't want it to be something that I'm always thinking about. Just notice and move on. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little Q&A session and going through this self-portrait journey with me. Huge thank you to the Cozy and Curious creatives over on Patreon for helping to support my art journey. If you're interested in seeing a few more gouache portraits, then head on over to watch this video next. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.